Hello and greetings from my animation. My name is Kryles and welcome back to my channel. Before I get started in my second of these series, please give this video a like and a share, and if you like my content, please subscribe. Please help me grow this little family I'm creating, and let's get on to the video. So in the last video, we covered my first step when it comes to playing Dungeons and Dragons, which was making a character. But let's get into my second video in the D&D for Dummies series. This week we will be focusing on what makes a good party.
It's D&D!
That's right, unless you are playing by yourself, you will need to break out of that introverted shell and talk to people. Grab your friends and assign your roles. Like previously stated, those will be your dungeon master and your players. Players, you will be making characters that will form an adventuring party, so it is important that a few things are put in place so you don't have a party that will end in a few sessions via a TPK, or just a group of people who don't get along, thus defeating the cooperative goal of a D&D party. So let's get started. Part 1. What kind of game are you playing? What's the goal of this role-playing game you are putting together with your friends? Are you in it to beat up and kill shit and get cool items and experience? Are you playing to become renowned adventurers that save the world from peril? Do you want to play a group of villains who hate the idea of goody two-shoe adventurers? Or are you using this game as cathartic playstyle therapy because it's easier to project your own traumas on characters you deem fictional to work them out for you? Just me? Either way, having a goal for what all of you at the table want to get out of this game is essential. It puts you all on the same page and gives not only the DM an affirmative for what is expected of them, but also puts expectations on the players. For example, my D&D party, which is coming on its 4th year and 4th campaign, had this talk when we started out all the way back at our first campaign. I told them that as a DM, I really wanted to construct a world and narrative that gave a very strong story-driven campaign. We basically made it like we were players and actors in our own TV show and have been meeting on every Monday night for the past 3 years. Having talked to the table outside of the game like this to set up scheduling, want, and other things from the outside world that will affect the game is important to have. That way everyone is on the same page and can have as much fun as possible. So don't be afraid to talk to your DM so that you can all discuss the best ways to run the game. Part 2, the player characters. Alrighty, so once you have all the out-of-game creases smoothed out, in-game is next. Now before anyone says anything, no, you do not have to follow what I say to a T. These are just suggestions. Remember, this is D&D for Dummies, so it is targeted a bit more towards people who have never played. At the end of the day, the base thing you need in a D&D party is that the characters all have to be able to work together. Do they have to be best friends or act like pseudo-families? No. Do they have to each be a different class and race for diversity or optimization? No. You can make your colorful cast of characters whatever you like as long as they are able to work together for the game and the DM's functionality. Otherwise, problems may arise. Now, I'm going to pull some examples from my 3 long-term campaigns to use as instances of how some party dynamics might work. My first campaign followed the adventuring party known as Rogue Con. Rogue Con was pretty well balanced when it came to the 5th edition statistics and game mechanics. In the party was Nova Infernus, a Fire Genasi fighter, Camilla Bittersong, a halfling bard, Oxius Skull Smasher, a Goliath barbarian, Kleptar Thenizath, a Triton paladin, and Adromaz, a human rogue. These classes make a pretty good group when it comes to first-time players, which my friends were at the time. In all honesty, Kleptar was my DM NPC that I inserted since they were new players opposed to me, and I really wanted to help them in the beginning. I don't like DM NPCs. I tried getting rid of him, I swear, but then Nova's player and Nova both decided to romance and marry him, so he kind of got stuck with them. Whoops. Rogue Con were your classic adventurers that became folk heroes, known by everyone in the land, and stopped an evil god in the end. Good for them. They slowly but surely along the campaign became a tight-knit family of their own. Dynamics in the group consisted of Camilla and Nova being best friends, Nova and Kleptar being lovers, Adro being an ex-convict, and Camilla's short fuse or Oxius' low intelligence sometimes running the party into trouble. Rogue Con, despite their little tiffs or disagreements, had the same driving force, that they were heroes for all who needed their help, so despite whatever problems they ran into, they could always come together to face any problem. Our second campaign followed the efforts of the party known as Impactamaga. Impactamaga was not as well balanced as Rogue Con, having magic users to melee attackers at a ratio of 4.5 to 6. We had the half-elven twins, Artemis Con and Iris Con, a Sun Soul monk and a Circle of the Moon druid, Malachor Vahau, a half-human, half-undead skeleton necromancer, Gruck, a goblin punished into a pact with a celestial patron, Palladius Warhawk, an Azamar bard, and Cinder Pilar, a blood hunter human whose patron the party would soon find out, by the end of the campaign, was the big bad the whole time, but we'll get to that. In this campaign, the dynamic was shifted a bit, considering I made the setting an oppressive empire that really beat down our characters and the NPCs. Think very Star Wars Empire-esque, or some other countries you may think of. So the party was formed not really through a shared sense of adventuring, but more a shared sense of survival. The party had a level of mistrust for one another.
I don't trust something like that.
Until a point in the campaign when they realized that all the horrors in their lives were from the influence of a dark and malevolent eldritch being. This campaign definitely had a lot of dark times and uncertainty in the game with, as previously stated, distrusting or hot-headed characters. But Impact Maga worked because of their understanding of their common goal that they were the ones that would stop this eldritch being. The best comparison I can make, at least for my American audiences, is that Impact Maga had a bond as a party very much akin to the likes of a fraternity or sorority pledge class would after having gone through their pledging process. Our third and current campaign follows the adventures, or misadventures, of the Severed Blades. The Severed Blades have the best of both worlds. They are mechanically well balanced like Rogue Khan, and just as untrusting as Impact Maga. Starting at 4 characters and now ending at 7, the Severed Blades consists of Phases, a Dragonborn Paladin, who is now half devil, and I'll explain that in a second. Ditto, a Gunslinger Changeling, Kali Ashaya, a Wood Elf Cleric, Arcus Downdraft, a Storm Sorcerer Air Genasi, Shing, a Simic Hybrid Barbarian, Ainsley Smith, a Human Cleric, and Venri, a Shifter Blood Hunter. Now, the Severed Blades started with a very simple and easy reason for why they worked and stuck together as a group. They were each knights that were hired to be a part of one of the many garrisons formed from a peace treaty between the different countries of their continent. When the peace treaty failed because of the continent's crown royals being killed, all due to interdimensional devils making pacts with people, some of which being the party lost their titles as hired knights. However, they stuck together because each of them seemed to have some sort of connection to these interdimensional devils that somehow made it into their reality. They kept their party together because all of them were curious to uncover the secrets behind why alternate reality beings ended up in their time. Not only that, but as more had been uncovered, they discovered, just recently in fact, how and why a merging of the dimensions had occurred and who did it. Which, yes, it's the campaign's big bad. Who is this one's boyfriend? Now, the Severed Blades is the perfect example of some dynamics that are easier said than done at the table, but have seemingly gone really well. So this character is a huge asshole. The player and I both discussed this and knew this coming in. Phases would be lawful evil. Now, before I get into that, let me give you my tangent on alignments. When it comes to alignments, there's a little chart of different types, which are mashups of good and evil and chaos and law. When it comes to NPCs, monsters, or whatever—
oh my god! What is that?
As a DM, you can go ham with what these alignments mean. But when it comes to player characters, in my opinion, these are not as cut and dry. Remember, D&D is based on combat mechanics, so having a good character who would never fight or harm another is not only very difficult to play with for the DM, but the players too. I once had a player who basically argued with the other players at the table for, in real life, 30 minutes about how pacifism in every situation should be approached, and that fighting was immoral, blah 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 blah. Don't take being good that far. It's a game with combat. Try and remember that. On the flip side, evil for player characters does not mean that they have to constantly be against the party they're in or be a villain. From my perspective, evil for a player character can just be their level of selfishness. To make it easy, when it comes to giving your character good or evil alignments, unless you, your party, and your DM have a different goal for your campaign, as I said earlier, look at them as not good or evil, more so selfless or selfish. Yeah, that's alignment. Back to my example. So Phases is lawful evil, very much selfish for the things only they want and like. They are brash, rude, snide, among many other things. Now, for some characters, they see it as a hard exterior that they want to break, believing there is a loving soul within the cold shell. For other characters, they hate Phases, and Phases feels still cold and indifferent towards them. Now, of course, as a DM, I know why Phases acts like this, and at this point in the campaign, everyone else does as well. But when starting the campaign, this was a very jarring personality presented at the table to play with for not only me as a DM with my NPCs, but for the other players who needed to be in a party with this character. However, despite Phases' brash nature, they still acted in best interest of completing whatever task the party was presented with. And also, we at the table spoke with this player, knowing that they did not want to be perceived as mean or hating the others. They just wanted to stick true to their character that they thought had enough spice, if you will, to add to the party and campaign without it being destructive or diminishing. Actually, it worked quite well for storytelling, because Phases was eventually presented with an opportunity that they could benefit from, but it would screw over their party. They choose the option that bettered them, hence why they're now part fiend. And that's how Ainsley was actually introduced, who was taken on as Phases' player's new character as Phases went off to do Phases things. Ainsley was very stark to Phases, being nice and caring, so that was great, and very much a healing factor for the party in the story. But where the story is now, Phases has returned to the party, so I do feel a little bit bad for my player who is now playing two characters at once because they did not want me taking over Phases and or Ainsley. but they're doing great, so round of applause for them. So yeah, if anything can be taken away from this, I hope it is that your possibilities for how to have a working or good party are limitless. As long as outside game scenarios are addressed, as well as intent and whatever choices are made are done that don't directly oppose playability, then you're golden. You can have a party full of dwarven fighters who are clones of each other, but as long as there is the potential for teamwork, then your party will be a good party. Teamwork do be really making the dream work. Have open dialogues with the DM and players, and the rest will follow. Jolly cooperation indeed.